We are starting a 6-week series on freedom. Now, I know that when I talk about freedom, some of you are actually saying, okay, Craig, we live in the United States. We have political freedom, we have economic freedom, and that's not the type of freedom that I'm talking about. That's one type of freedom. You can live in the United States and have all these freedoms, but live as an indentured servant to something else. And you can live in a very unfree country, and spiritually and emotionally live as a very free person. Now, let me ask you a question, and this is going to help us get our discussion started on experiencing more of God's freedom in life. The question is this. When you go to bed at night, like when you wake up in the morning, when you're driving around in your car by yourself, when you're in a meeting and it's not very exciting, you start to daydream a little bit, what is it that you dream about? Think about what is it that you are dreaming about. There's different things. We could dream about a person. Maybe we want to be with a person and we're dreaming about being with them. Maybe some of us dream about just all of a sudden coming into a bunch of money and not having that be a worry for us anymore in our life. Some of us may dream about a place. There's a place that we want to go, or there's a place we've been and we want to return there, and we dream about that place. Some of us, we dream about returning to yesterday, and some of us just wish that we could fast forward through this season that we're in right now to get to the season that we believe in the future is going to be a whole lot better. Now, I don't know specifically what you were dreaming about, but I would say this. If your dreams are about an escape from your present reality, then I would say that you are not a free person. Because prisoners try to escape, don't they? So if you're dreaming about something that is going to help you escape from your present situation or your present reality, I would say that you are not a free person. Yes, I was talking to this young guy a couple months ago. He's in his 20s, probably 23, 24, and I used to run with him once in a while, and I hadn't talked to him, and he called me up and wanted to meet. So we decided that we're going to meet at Upstream for lunch one day, and he was talking to me, and just kind of some small talk, and then he got to the important stuff, and basically he just told me like everything that was going on in his life, and he was having a tough go of it. He had gotten out of college, he got this job with a good company, he liked the job, then all of a sudden they had some changes, and he's still with that same company, but he's not doing the same job, and it's just burning him out. 23, 24 years old, he doesn't like getting up for work, he looks at the clock all day and can't wait until it's like 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and then he was telling me how his mom now has cancer, and he is the kid that lives locally. All the older brothers and sisters, they live somewhere else, and he's having to do a lot of care for her. That's wearing on him too. And then I think the biggest thing that he was dealing with is him and his girlfriend had a relationship change, and they decided not to move forward, and his heart was hurting. And then as he put down his burger and his fries, he looked at me, and he said something, and he says, "Craig, I just got to keep myself busy." And I put my jambalaya down because I had to respond to that. That is not what he needs to do. I just said, you don't need to keep yourself busy. You got to deal with your pain. And he looked at me after I disagreed with him, and he said, "That wasn't nice." I said, "Well, I'm not here to be nice to you. I'm here to help you. You don't need to keep busy. You're already busy. In fact, that's part of your problem. You get up in the morning, you dread going to work, you go to work, you don't like it, you look forward to getting off, you're going to care for your mom, your heart's healing from this brokenness with your ex-girlfriend. You got enough activity in your life. That's not the issue. The issue is that you got to deal with this pain. You got some real pain here. We're talking unfulfilled dreams, we're talking relational stuff with the mom, we're talking about a broken heart. You got to deal with it. It's not going to go away." So I'm not sure he was convinced, and this kid, he's a super athlete. One of the things he does is Ironman triathlons and half Ironmans and all that kind of stuff. That's how I actually got to know him, when we run together a few years ago. And I told him, I said, "So you did a half Ironman triathlon last year, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, was it tough? He goes, yeah, it was very tough. Like, you gotta like bike like 56 miles and run 13 and swim 1 or something like that. And I said, what did you do like the day after the triathlon? Did you go out and like do another race, or did you go for a long bike ride, or did you go for a hard run? He goes, no, like I rested. And I said, well, why did you rest? And he says, well, I wanted to get better. I was hurting. And I said, you realize you just like, answered your own question here, right? Like, you got this busyness and you got this brokenness in your life, and do you think that like more busyness is going to fix like some of this issue stuff that you're going through? Now, my brother, my oldest brother, Scott, he is a colon cancer survivor. He lives in Des Moines, and like I think 4 years ago when he went to have his surgery, I got up really early in the morning. I went over to Des Moines, and I was going to pray for him. So I walked in the room, and I thought I'd try to make him laugh, so I kind of told him a joke, and I said, Scott, I'm not very happy with you right now. Like, this guy's laying in the bed and stuff, and he said, why are you mad at me? I said, I got to have a colonoscopy because of you. We prayed for him, and he got his colon taken out, and some other changes to his body. He went through the chemotherapy and the radiation, and 4 years later, he's doing great. But what's really interesting? That was the first surgery Scott ever had. It's the first one later that I ever had, and both of us experienced something for the first time in our life, and that something is anesthesia. So this is important stuff, isn't it? Like, you can't have a surgery without anesthesia, because anesthesia does a couple things. It doesn't have us experience the pain, and it numbs us. It puts us to sleep. Now, I want to submit that all of us, and there is no exceptions, all of us have some sort of pain that exists in our life. That's just the way it works out. We're humans. Pain happens. Jesus says, when there's trials and tribulations in your life, he doesn't say if, he says when these things exist. So we got this pain that exists in our life, and there's trained physicians that administer the anesthesia to the patient. But I would say we have a bunch of untrained people, namely ourselves, administering cultural anesthesia to the pain that we experience in life. The financial pain, the emotional pain, the relational pain, the spiritual pain. What we do is we will use things, we will use substances, we will use events, we will use people to numb the pain that exists in our life. Now, let me give you some examples here. And some of you are going to know all too well what I'm talking about, because this is your story. Sometimes life gets to be a little bit too much, so all of a sudden there can be like an addiction or a compulsion to things like painkillers or alcohol. What we're doing is we're numbing the pain. For some it might be like an addiction to a video game or social media. We get home from a really tough day, and we just want to go home and sit in front of the television. The average American watches 27 hours of television per week. It's easy to watch other people's lives and not deal with our own life. There can be an unhealthy obsession with sports, whether it's your sport or your kids' sport or some stranger's sport who you will never meet. For some it might be a shopping spree. You've heard the term retail therapy. That is dealing with our pain in a very unhealthy way. There's comfort food, there's busy schedules. If we just do enough stuff at enough times with enough people, we won't have to deal with the baggage and the junk that we're carrying. Now, Jesus, he knows your pain. Like, your pain is not unique to Jesus. Jesus is aware of your pain. Like that day that you got that job transfer, you lost your job, Jesus was there. The day that you found out that your mom had cancer, the day that you found out that you had something going on with your health, Jesus was there. On the day that your girlfriend broke up with you, on the day that you had a relationship that just went down the drain, Jesus was there. Listen to what the psalmist says in verse 8 of chapter 139. He says, if I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. Now, in a way, this is very comforting stuff. Like, your high point in life, the successes, the the faithfulness, those good times, the laughter. Jesus is with us. God is with us. And then, like when life gets really tough, when the brokenness happens, and when we fail and we fall, Jesus says that in the depths of life, or the psalmist says, that God is going to be with us. Now, there's a couple of ways, I think, like intellectually, some of us try to deal with pain in different ways. Like some of us may say something like, okay, I'm dealing with some pain, but, compared to other people, I just don't have it too bad. Now, you have to know that although other people may appear to have it worse, your pain is real, and your pain matters to you. Some of us might say something like, I'm just gonna look on the bright side. I'm going through some tough times, but I have a lot of things I can be grateful for. Now, I think this is good in a way. I mean, to count our blessings and to be grateful for all that God is doing in our lives. But you still have to acknowledge, even though there's good, there's bad too, and we have to acknowledge this. It's not going to go away if we don't deal with it. Your pain is real, and it still exists. Now, finally, some of us might just have this really tough thing where we just say, well, you just got to suck it up and stop crying. Just work through it. Now, seriously, has that ever worked out for you before? No, it doesn't. I mean, like when my brother had his colon cancer, he can't tough out his cancer. There had to be a doctor that came and helped him with that. And likewise with us, I love, there's a couple names for Jesus. There's many names for Jesus, and two of them. One of them is the Wonderful Counselor. So if we're going through emotional stuff, we know that Jesus is with us. We know that if we're going through some physical stuff, God is known as the great physician. God can heal us in our lives. Now, Jesus sets us free. I want to tell you a story about what happened at the race on late Friday night or early Saturday morning. One of the responsibilities I had was to find the person who sings the national anthem. Now, I totally forgot about that. So the one from the Hope Center called me up at noon and says, hey, who do you get to sing the national anthem? And I'm like, nobody. She says, well, you need to take care of this. I'm like, okay. So I can't sing. I'm not going to sing the national anthem. So I had to figure something out, and I didn't have any time, so I called Chad Shookman. I said, find someone to sing the national anthem. And Chad came through like he always does. He found this girl, and man, she just knocked it out of the park. Now, this girl, I run a camp for teenagers in the summer. And I think about 3 or 4 years ago, she was at my camp. And I hadn't talked, she was a great kid, just so musical and just a wonderful kid. She's a sophomore in high school now. And I wanted to catch up with her. I wanted to talk to her and just see how things were going in her life, see what God was doing. And so this girl and I were within 20 feet of each other 90% of the time for 3 straight hours. Now, do you think I got to hear her story? Nope, I did not get to hear her story. 2 reasons why, from what I can tell. Reason number 1 is that it was very loud. She also doubled as the DJ. So she's got our Sunday night worship soundboard, and she's playing with the things, and got the computer picked up, and she's entertaining all the people. So it was very loud. I went over to talk to her a few times, and I'm like, and she's like, we couldn't hear each other. There's too much noise. And the second thing is she was too busy. She was busy doing the DJing, and I was busy. I was the MC for the night, so I was busy making announcements. For the 14th time, the bathrooms are over there. They're those little, 4x8 tall buildings that are tan. You can use them. We didn't think of getting lights, so take your cell phone with you. I was making sure the starting line was in the right place and everything was in order. And 3 hours later when we left at 1 in the morning, I did not get to hear her story. Now, where you fit in with this is I think I know something about your life. I think it's loud, and I think it's busy. I think there's a lot of noise that you hear every day that prevents us from that connection with ourselves, with others, and with God. And I think there's enough busyness and enough activity and enough hurriedness every day that are going to prevent us from hearing and sharing stories with others, hearing God's story, and dealing with some of the stuff that we need to deal with. Now, I want to look at 2 quotes about busyness. One is from Thomas Merton. He was a Trappist monk. And he says that, listen to what it's just 3 words. You can remember this one. Busyness ruins saints. and he is spot on. Busyness ruins saints. Now, Eugene Peterson, he translated the Hebrew and the Greek into the version of the Message today that we know, or the version of the Bible that we know today as the Message. Now, listen to what he said. He said that busyness is the enemy of spirituality. Now, I'm going to tell you something about your busyness. Most of the time, your busyness is going to be self-imposed. These are things that we have voluntarily taken on. These are things that we have said yes to. I think for many of us, busyness is almost like an addiction. Because we are afraid if we are not busy, what we might actually face in its absence. Now, as I look out here and as I look at the people that I know, most people are busy. Most of us would probably say that we're busy, wouldn't we? Okay, here's what we're busy with. We're busy with work. Now, you may work 40 hours a week, but you come home and you just can't get it out of your mind. Your phone is with you, you're checking email. Maybe you had a stressful day, or tomorrow's going to be a tough day and you don't sleep as well as you should. We're busy with work, even if it's not the 40 or 45 or 50 hours that we're actually there. Sometimes it's going to be projects around the house. I said a little bit ago, 27 hours a week we're watching television. There's Twitter, there's texting, there's words with friends, there's working out. Even like children are so busy today. I observe this as a pastor, I observe it as a parent. I observe this as a soccer coach to 16, 14-year-olds. I'm in constant communication with their parents about their schedules. We got these kids scheduled down to the half hour with school and sports and other stuff. And these kids get home at night and they're just as tired as mom and dad are. And they're learning that this is completely normal and acceptable behavior because this is what we're teaching them. Now, busyness, most of the time, is neither necessary or inevitable, and it is rarely good. It's something that we've chosen, even if it's by our acceptance, to what we consider now as normal. So let me play this little game with you, all right? You ready? Let's talk about busyness and distractions. How many times did you check your cell phone yesterday? Seriously, how many times did you check it? Do you know the number? Is it 10? More? 20? A lot, right? Now, what I told the people at the first service, someone should actually, I know that we have like computer people here, make an app for that. And like put it online and give us 10% because it's a brilliant idea. And try to figure out how many times it is that we check our cell phone in a certain day. Like I was at the Nebraska game yesterday, and there was this two women that were sitting, it was me and Benjamin and Amber and David were down a couple rows from us, and there was these two women that came right when the game started, and I swear that I don't think they ever saw the game. Both of them looked at their phone the entire time. So it's like getting later in the game here, and I'm like, okay, girls, we got a little problem here. There's a D2 team that is doing the throwdown on us right now, and they need you to cheer for them. I actually didn't say that, but I did want to. It was the weirdest thing. I just prayed when it was like 3rd and 6 with a minute to go, and we scored this touchdown. So, okay, but then I was thinking about so for many Nebraskans, like the best place to be yesterday would have been where? Like Memorial Stadium. Not for everybody, but for many. Now, there's this thing that happens like 7 times this year going on right in front of them. And they were completely oblivious because of this little 2x3 screen that was in front of them. And then I wondered how many of us are missing out on life because we are so distracted and because we're so busy and because we're so hurried. I'm not like, I don't have this figured out. You guys know me. I don't have this figured out. Yeah, some of you find this hard to believe, but people like me and Dan, we don't just work on Sundays, like we do it on Monday too. That's a joke. I'm laughed. Like on Thursday, Dan and I were at the same meeting. Dan's our district superintendent, and I drove 2.5 hours for like a 7-hour meeting. I got back at 5:35 for a 5:30 meeting. That meeting got done at 6:45, so I started a 6:30 meeting. We got home at 8:30. I got up at 7 o'clock on Friday. I worked for like 8 or 9 hours. Went down and did this race thing. I got home at 2 in the morning. I got up and went to the football game yesterday. That was a Sabbath, going to the football game. And that I coached a soccer game with these U14 soccer boys that I have, our first game of the year. If you want to know how we did, ask me after church. If you don't want to know, we beat Gretna 8-1. Real proud of the boys. They played great. But this isn't just me, is it? I think you guys deal with it just as much, if not more, or almost as much. Now, I want you to know that God says, so here's how it goes. Jesus was asked what the most important commandment was. Now, if you guys have been around here for a while, you know what this is. Jesus says, keep busy. Now, that's not what Jesus said, was it? Jesus said, love me. Love me with everything you got. Love your neighbor. And don't forget to love yourself. Now, God then gives us a Sabbath to both connect with Him and with others, and to discover and to rediscover who we are created to be. Now, we today live in this era of busyness and hurriedness and connectivity, which may connect us to parts of the world, but it disconnects us from the creator of the world. Now, for many of us, and I would say probably for most all of us, our biggest danger is not that we will turn our back on Jesus or renounce our faith. I believe that today, in Omaha, Nebraska, in 2014, the biggest danger that we face is that we are so distracted and so rushed and so preoccupied that we settle for a very mediocre version of this faith that God wants to give to us. Now, you're aware of the problems that busyness creates, aren't you? Because you've been there and done that. Some of you are there right now. You're tired. It doesn't feel good waking up in the morning being tired, does it? There's better feelings that exist than that. You know, we're stressed out. We get restless. It makes relationships very difficult. And if there's enough preoccupation, if there's enough hurriedness, and if there's enough busyness, and there's enough distraction, it just makes having a relationship with God very, very difficult. Now, God didn't create us. God did not create us to be under-resourced and over-committed. God has created us so that we may have oneness with ourselves, with others, and with Him. Psalm 62, verse 1. Listen to what the psalmist says. If you're here today and you're looking for rest, just listen to what he has to say. My soul finds rest in God alone. My soul finds rest in God. My soul finds rest in God alone. My salvation comes from Him. Earlier in chapter 46, verse 10, the psalmist says, be still and know that I am God. We are not going to grow in our walk with Jesus Christ in the busyness and the distractions of this world unless there's some type of space and some type of time that we can carve out for Him. God spoke to Moses in the verse that Paul read a little bit ago in Exodus chapter 31, verse 13. Now here, God is beginning to give Moses the law. Now listen to how the conversation starts out. God says to Moses, you are to speak to the people of Israel and say, now listen to the first couple words here. Above all, there's going to be like 9 other things, but above all, you shall keep my Sabbaths, for this is a sign between me and throughout your generations, that you may know that I, the Lord, will sanctify you. Now, some of us might automatically go to this place, okay, here's more dogma, here's more rigidness, and we actually talked about this a little bit last week. When God gives us a law, the reason that God does this is because God loves us. So here's how I'm going to make this personal for all of us, okay? For those of us who are parents, and if you're not a parent, just imagine that you are for a moment. Let's just assume that you had a kid, and this kid was 25 years old, okay? Now, if you saw, let's just say it was a woman, if you saw her just working around the clock, if you saw her just having no time and energy for herself, if you saw her being so distracted and so busy that she was just slowly burning herself out, what would you say to her out of love? You'd say, slow down, wouldn't you? Take a day off. Take some time off, get refreshed. Now, the reason that you would tell your child that is because you love your child. You don't want to see this girl have no energy at the end of the day. You don't want to see this girl spending time and energy doing things that she doesn't like to do. You would tell her this because you love her. Now, God knows that this is going to be an issue for us. So what God says is, above all else, you shall keep my Sabbaths. Now, you may say, but I'm busy. But let's think about this. Like, what if just for 1 week, as you go through your small group stuff this week, or as you come back next Sunday, for 1 week, instead of saying I'm busy, let's say, God, I'm ready. It's no longer going to be God, I'm busy, but God, I'm ready. Because you're not too busy. It's just not a priority. Anytime that someone asks you to do something, you can say yes or no. But you can never say that you're too busy. You always have to say it's not a priority. When Benjamin and David asked me if I want to play, I can't say no, I'm busy. I have to say no, it's not a priority. Something else is more important than you right now. And it's going to be the same way with God. God invites us into this life-giving relationship with Him. Instead of this week saying I'm busy, let's this week say I'm ready. So let's pray.